Hi everyone, if you enjoy what I do, then I think you'd enjoy my short collection of short stories, available now on Amazon. Please make sure to subscribe and consider becoming a Patreon. Enjoy the video! There are any number of distinct and unusual creatures that inhabit the world of Hollow Knight, from the lowest of scuttling bug to godlike entities imprisoned within cages of the mind. There are those who stand between though, not gods but terrible and powerful all the same, seeking dominion over those below them. As far as most know, there is only one such being, unique in its grandeur. But then, in a world as vast and varied as Hollow Nest, what if there is another? One whose defeated visage still remains at Kingdom's Edge, their true nature forever lost to time. By the lizards long ago. However, the terrain can be extremely dangerous. Right, time to die. Before the time of Hollow Nest, there were the moths, and their worship of the great radiance who had given them life. Then came the Pale Wyrm, a higher being who, through a misguided benevolence or craving for domination, would build a mighty kingdom, raise up the lower forms to sapient thought, and wrest the affection of his subjects away from the radiance. While many saw the Pale King as a singular being, a higher form to be worshipped, would it be that he was just one of a primordial race, who each sought to conquer their own lands, and rule over subjects who would tend to their every need? The Pale Wyrm may have indeed been special among its kind though, an anomaly in that it would be the only one to shed its true form, taking the image of its subjects, and becoming a beacon, a new light of Hollow Nest, when the radiance was inevitably locked away. The Pale King's brethren were not so fortunate however, for they were the Black Wyrm, formed of void and lacking the light of the pale beings. When the great darkness fell across the world, many kingdoms would swiftly succumb to the encroaching wastelands, the worms who ruled them dying before they knew what was happening. But there was one Black Wyrm who would resist the darkness, doing all they could to preserve their domain, although it was never going to be enough. And before long the Black Wyrm was left among the ruins of its fallen kingdom, flanked only by a handful of its most loyal subjects. There was nothing left for the Black Wyrm now, and most would have given up and waited for the wasteland to consume them. But there was still defiance in the Black Wyrm, a burning need to know why this had happened. The answer, or at least where to find it, would be clear, for in all the world, the only land that still saw radiance was Hollow Nest, kept aglow by the King's pale light. The Black Wyrm and its followers would traverse the wasteland in search of their answers and retribution for their destroyed home, eventually finding themselves in the eastern edge of Hollow Nest. But something was wrong. The land was coated in the decaying flesh of a Pale Wyrm, and deep within the caverns lay the rotting carcass of the creature they had been seeking. Could this odd being have really suffered the same fate as the other worms after all? The destruction consuming the land caused by something else entirely. All the Black Wyrm knew was that Hollow Nest lived still, while so many other kingdoms have fallen, and the reason must have been something to do with this pale oddity. Events would move swiftly for the Black Wyrm though, as its approach had not gone unnoticed by the Pale King, and backed by his loyal defenders, who would set out to Kingdom's Edge to meet this challenge. Defensive as it was, the Black Wyrm would not immediately seek vengeance against the Pale King, instead wishing to satiate its curiosity. How was it that the Pale King had achieved such transmutation when no other worm had? How had he brought light to Hollow Nest in the radiance's absence? Despite their best efforts at dialogue, the Pale King's answers were lacking, and the Black Wyrm would grow impatient, becoming ever more convinced that all of the destruction and hardship that had befallen the world had been the King's doing, and at last it struck out, commanding its guardians to destroy this false god. The battle was hard fought, with the Black Wyrm's guardians easily as skilled in combat as the Pale King's defenders. Only they had not travelled across the barren wastes, and soon the Black Wyrm was beaten back. The defenders would anchor the beast with great chains to quell its thrashing, and cutting down the guardians as they tried in vain to protect their master, they would venture into the Black Wyrm's maw to find and silence its heart. Finally the Black Wyrm was still, its final subjects slain, and with them the last remnants of a world outside Hollow Nest were extinguished. Of course, in time, lands outside even the worm's knowledge would come to reveal themselves, but for now, there was only Hollow Nest, and the Pale King would return to his own concerns, leaving the body of his kin to rot alongside his own. Of course, the will of warriors who would match the great defenders of Hollow Nest are not so easily defeated, and in the aftermath of their great battle, one of the guardians would stir, and weep at the sight of his fallen lord, pledging that Hollow Nest may yet suffer the Black Wyrm's wrath. Hi everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you liked what you saw, then I think you'd like my short collection of short stories. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, sharing it with all your friends, and if you want to support me that bit more, become a Patreon. Links are all down in the description. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you next time.